Stuart, you cannot help but look at the fortunes or otherwise of your beloved Nottingham Forest. 10 matches without a win, fighting to save their very own Premier League status. Stuart, 16 players out injured, changes being made above them. I mean, Steve Cooper must be wondering what the heck's going on half the time. I mean, in the week building up to United's visit at the weekend there, Filippo Giraldi dismissed from his role as sporting director. Ross Wilson, I know Ross, came from Glasgow, from Rangers. He's gone in there and he's replaced him. George Sirianos, Forest head of recruitment. Andy Scott, chief scout, sacked earlier in the season. And the chief executive, Dane Murphy, sidelined, then departed. He's yet to be replaced. Cooper would be like, He'd be looking at the door seeing who's going out next.
Well, he's been the only stable individual in the whole scenario this season, you know, and as luck happens, they've backed him and kept with him, and I think there's a general love for him around the ground, you know, with the fans, which is good to see. But I'm looking, I think last time I was talking about it's probably 3 from 5 now at the bottom of the table. I think that is the case, without a doubt, and I'm looking at Forest games between now and the end of the season, really, really tough. You know, Liverpool away, Brighton at home, Brentford away, Chelsea they've got to play, they've got Arsenal to play. It's probably the only 2 shining beakers where you think they might get points potentially. Southampton at home and Palace away, but Palace away are flying at the moment.
Yeah, so exactly. We'll
really
hear from Roy shortly.
Them.
I mean, the 2-0 goal scoreline stands. That is in tablets of stone, but were they unfortunate not to be awarded a penalty after the ball shot Maguire's arm?
It certainly seems to be the groundswell of opinion that was the case, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper was talking about it afterwards through Forest official channels, saying, this was another bad week for the officials.
I'm not going to hide behind a penalty decision or a referee's decision on a result because I'm not that way, but it should have been a penalty. High chance of going 1-0 up, high chance of them going to 10 men. It's a completely different game, and I the referee should see it. But the fact VAR haven't seen it is there's another apology coming, isn't there? You know, they've made one last week and they're going to have to make another one tomorrow. But they can't keep doing it every week.
I like Steve Cooper, Simon, but I'm not going to blame the officials. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call out the officials. I mean, it's not great. They look as if they're running out of time, and they look like championship bound to me.
Well, I mean, I said on a show that we did with Danny back in the middle of January, and he tipped Wolves to go down, and I said, no, I think Lopetegui will take Wolves out of it. And I said, I think that Forest are back in the mix now. I think, irrespective of the fact they went and got a result against Manchester City, which was a great 1-1 draw, they've been feeble away from home. And the manager has to take some responsibility for some of this. I'm not suggesting that Steve Cooper should be fired. That's not where I'm going with this particular soliloquy. But this, at times, has been feeble, and a tacit acceptance that they're going to be feeble away from home and rely on their away form. Their home form to get them past it. And ultimately, you're going to come up against teams at the business end of the season. They've either got titles to go for or are going to fight just as hard as you do at your place of business. And that's where they find themselves now. They're in the bottom 3 on merit. You can argue that they've got lots of players injured out, and then we can have the same argument earlier on in the season that they had too many players being bought. Chief executives being marginalised. Directors of football have nothing to do with Steve Cooper and the team on the pitch.
All that coming and going in the background means nothing.
Nothing to do with it. If
still disruptive.
It's an excuse if it's used that way. It doesn't affect the players. It doesn't affect the manager. If they want to allow it to affect them, then that's up to them, but that would be an excuse. What happens on the pitch on a Saturday afternoon, on Monday to Friday, the chief executive has nothing to do with that. The director of football will likely have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, but Steve Cooper's looking at his support structure and it's crumbling round and about.
Well, shall I tell you where his support structure is? His own backside and winning games. That's his support structure. And if you don't win games, doesn't matter how many supporters you've got, doesn't matter how many chief executives are still in situ, doesn't matter how many directors of football are being patted on the back by the owner of the football club. If you ain't winning games, you're still going to get the sack.
Still looks chaotic though, Simon.
Well,
how can he be expected to win games when those all around him are leaving right, left and centre? Well, it's hardly stabilising.
Well, by the same token, he should think that he's the exception to the rule, should go and earn that right to be the exception to the rule then. Because if everybody else is being taken out as a result of the jobs that they're doing, and he is at the sharp end of those jobs because it's his job to produce a winning team, then he can consider himself to be the exception to the rule and act like that. Now, I like him. I think he's a very good manager. I'm not suggesting that Nottingham Forest should fire him. I'm always suggesting Nottingham Forest getting promoted to the Premier League was always a situation where there was going to be risk and they might get relegated again. It is not a disaster if they get relegated again. It's a waste of people's time and you lose some time and you're not going to get it back. But I also believe that Forest have been so poor away from home. I mean, so poor that there has to be some sort of mental block and approach that's being levied by their manager.
Why have they been? Why have they been, Stuart? I mean, Simon's not wrong.
No, he's not. It's pure talent. They're struggling to score goals. I'm looking at the goals for tally. 24 goals they've scored this year. I think it's only Southampton and Everton that have scored 24, the equal lowest. And for all intents and purposes, those might be the three that end up going down. As they normally say, the goals you score equate to the points you get, you know, and it's not far off it if you look through the league table at the end of a season. But I think Simon's point's fairly prudent there. If you're a manager at a club and you go into certain clubs and you've got backup around you, outside yourself and outside your coaching staff and your group of players, if you've got backup around you, it's brilliant. It's a bonus.
True, agreed.
If you haven't, you circle the wagons at your training ground and you say, we'll get on with it, and the periphery around us is no help at all. Yeah. I've worked at clubs where I've had great help around me at board level, and I've also worked at clubs and I thought, Jesus wept. Yeah, these idiots around me don't know anything about football and they're no help to me at all, so I just have to rely on myself for good or for bad. You are, of course,
extremely relevant to this because it's Forest, Stuart. I hate having to ask you, but I will ask you. Are you now of the opinion they'll drop?
Yeah, I am. Listen, I've felt it's been, since about a week ago, I've always felt it's been about 3 from 5 teams. Yeah. Out of those 3, I would say Forest will be in the second favourites potentially behind Southampton to go, as I see it today.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.